You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Fast ship. Never heard of the William Fall?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
What a piece of junk.
Covering Star Wars vehicles in less than 12 parsecs, this is Start Your Engines.
Don't get technical with me.
Here are your hosts, Paul Naylor and Mark Newbold.
You're listening to Start Your Engines. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today to discuss the swoops and speeders of Attack of the Clones, it's Paul Naylor. Paul, how you doing, man?
Great. And I think the swoops and speeders, it's almost like we're bird watchers. It's like we're going out with binoculars and tweed jackets, isn't it? Swoops and speeders? Twitching. Well, I'm twitching to get on with this one. This is going to be amazing.
Man, you are on form today. I'm really looking forward to this one because looking at the vehicles of Attack of the Clones, there's few that are more in your face and iconic than the three that we've chosen for this episode. Yeah. So we're going to talk about Anakin's speeder that he sort of steals when he's chasing down Zam. We'll talk about Zam's vehicle as well. Yeah. And then Anakin's swoop that he uses to ride across the plains of Tatooine, which we will come back to in a moment.
We will come back to Tatooine
because there's a very logical reason for talking about this. First things first, the vehicles. Let's start off with Anakin's speeder. It's the very, very vivid yellow one that Anakin picks specifically. When Obi-Wan tells him off, why did he take so long? I couldn't find a ship that I liked. It's obviously, you wanted the bright, shiny yellow one. When you first saw Attack of the Clones, that sequence, that Coruscant sequence, you know, that starts with the Kuhuns attacking Padme and it just runs for longer than you kind of remember. It's a, sort of the whole sequence. What do you remember from that first appearance of this vehicle right in the thick of these big action moments?
I think what I took from it straight away was the fact it was really paying homage to the pod race. Yeah. We already knew that Anakin had got this insane ability as a human to be able to race in pod races. I'm the only human who can do it. To see him in a speeder again, in an environment like Coruscant, and for us to see Coruscant in a different way. Oh, completely. As well. If anything, it had always felt a bit claustrophobic in the scenes where we've just been in like the Jedi Temple, where you just basically got the council just sat there and just chatting away. All you can see is the odd speeder flying back in the background. But this was like at night, everything's all lit up.
Atmospheric.
Very atmospheric. And it also gave that buddy cop relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan as well straight away. I think it was a cracking little scene, and the fact that he sort of like quipped that he was trying to find the one that he wanted. Yeah. It always reminded me of that Cornish comedian Jethro when he's trying to find the right bus to get home, but that's really one for the Brits.
That is very much one for the Brits, and Brits of a certain age. That whole sequence, I mean, we've said this before, Attack of the Clones, I think people sit on that film. Yeah. That film is overlooked in a way that it never should be.
Criminally.
Action-wise, visual, the plot. I mean, Spielberg said at the time, and I don't know whether that holds. We've had a few Star Wars films since then, and Spielberg worked on Revenge of the Sith. But when Attack of the Clones came out, he said that it was his favourite Star Wars film. Yeah, because it's a mystery film. Yeah, it's got that plot device of moving forward through the plot. They're trying to figure something out. Very unlike other Star Wars films. It was more linear in that sense. But then when you get to the crux of what they're kind of trying to hunt down, wow, look at what's suddenly opening up. We're about to kick off the Clone Wars and all the other stuff that goes with it. But in terms of design and in terms of thrills, as you just said, that Coruscant sequence, because we'd seen it, as you say, we saw Return of the Jedi Special Edition, we see that one shot with the statue coming down. Yes. And that was the first time we saw live action Coruscant, and it was amazing. Then we see Episode 1, and it's quite sedate.
It is.
By comparison.
It's almost Cloud City-like, isn't it?
I never thought of it that way. That is the best comparison.
Yeah. So when you see it at night with all the buildings lit up and all the vehicles flying around in grid patterns, but also at the same time it could be potentially chaotic, sort of Blade Runner-esque. Yeah. It was just a good way to connect Episode 1 and 2 and sort of make you think, this is clearly Anakin because he's great at flying around in vehicles and saving his mates and everything. So, and also, I wonder why they went for the bright yellow. Again, that might be sort of like a nod back to the Naboo N1 fighter.
I think it's a nod to, as much as anything, to American Graffiti, because you'd had Dexy's Diner, which was like the malt shop, and then you had the Hot Rods, the Bob Falfers, all those characters in Graffiti. And so Anakin picking that speeder and just the look of that speeder, especially that one, was sort of a tip of the hat to that.
I think definitely to that, but also you could say that it was a nod to the N1 as well.
Oh, totally.
The last time we saw him in a vehicle was that same sort of yellow N1, wasn't it?
Okay, we've got 3 ships to get through, so let's dig into this first vessel.
Yeah.
So it's the XJ6 airspeeder.
Manufacturer,
Simon Greyshade's personal mechanics.
model, and class.
It's a Narglach AirTech prefabricated kit. So that sounds like a Morgan. That sounds like a kit car.
Like a kit car, yeah.
I love the thought that in the Star Wars galaxy, you can buy your off-the-line stuff. I mean, we're getting this. We've got Mando and Grogu coming, obviously, very soon. And there's another Razor Crest in it. Yeah. So, and you've realised in the past where someone has seen Mando's ship and they've gone, it's a Razor Crest. And we thought that was the name of the ship, but it's not. It's a model of the ship. Oh, a Ford Cortina. You know what I mean? That vehicle's a thing that's out there that other people have got.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, you talking about it being like a kit car has just thrown me because when I was growing up, when I was 12, 13...
Back in the 60s?
Yeah, back in the 60s, thank you. 12 or 13, so around the time of Jedi coming out.
Yeah.
Next door neighbours at the time, they were ex-military. And he obviously wanted to do something with his time and money.
Yeah.
So he set up a company basically building kit cars.
Yeah.
And it was called, his name was Derek, and it was called the Del Kit Camino. It looked absolutely immense, this car. It looked like a sports car. But like you've just said, it was actually on top of a Cortina chassis.
Isn't it mad?
That's mad that you said that. In the end, it didn't really work out as a massive success, but the fact that he had a go at it, all credit to him.
Totally off topic, but our next door neighbour, I say next door neighbour, the guy over the road from where I lived as a kid, Spencer, had an Escort Mexico. Remember the rally car?
Technical specifications.
It's 6.23 metres in length, 2.66 metres in width, 1.4 metres high, and weighs 1,600 kilograms. So it's not a light vehicle.
No.
You think, because they've got the repulsors, they feel like they're light, not heavy, but this is a heavy set, solid thing. So Anakin picked well.
It was quite a chunk as well, wasn't it? When you think about it in the film, it's almost like a wardrobe on the side that's been sprayed yellow. But yeah, I mean, I suppose you see Anakin in it first because he's the one that's taken it, and we're assuming he's stolen it. Basically, he's acquired it.
I think it's one of those. If there was somebody in it, it would have been a cop with his badge going, "We're apprehending this vehicle," or whatever the phrase is, and off they go, and you never see your car again.
But I mean, that whole sequence starts off with the perilous nature of Obi-Wan flying through that window, clutching onto that droid, and flying around thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And then all of a sudden Anakin races underneath him in the yellow vehicle. Yeah, as a sequence, I just loved it. Phantom Menace took it was a bit more pedestrian in its approach, whereas this sort of went, boom, let's just get on with this.
And just another thing, just looking at the name, XJ6.
Yeah.
Jaguar.
That's a Jaguar.
They're giving you hints to their influences.
Yeah.
Maximum atmospheric speed.
Maximum acceleration, 70G, which is the limits of its engines, 70G. That thing...
So that can go.
Knock your head off.
Yeah.
That would make a Formula One car look like a Skoda. And I say that, an old Skoda. New Skodas are very nice.
Skoda will
We're looking for
have a
sponsors.
Formula One team.
Don't want to diss Skoda. Maximum atmospheric speed, because obviously it can only travel in atmosphere, 720 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
So what's that, 600 miles an hour?
Yeah.
That's pod race speed.
Yeah.
Engine specs.
It's got a 30 megawatt twin turbofan engine.
Armament.
No armament, so it's not armoured at all, unless you're carrying a lightsaber, but of course Anakin's got a habit of losing his.
Crew complement.
One pilot, one passenger, so it's a two-seater. It's got an inertial compensator, electrogravitic gyro flywheels, miniature tractor units. Don't quite know how that works. I'm curious to see how that works. I mean, obviously when Ben grabs the lightsaber, he's using the Force to pull it to him.
Yeah. So when we say tractor units, are we talking tractor beam?
That's my read of it.
Yeah.
Miniature tractor units and a tracking device, obviously a sensor so you can pick it up in traffic. I mean, I guess a vehicle like this is perfect for Coruscant traffic.
Yeah.
But I wonder, with those vehicles, you just alluded to the grid system.
Yeah.
Which feels very much like, for the most part, you get into that lane and you're then in an automated flow.
Yeah, I would imagine it would probably work a bit like your parking sensors on a car, where you would lock into the grid, basically.
Yeah.
You'd have to do that, otherwise it'd become very complicated up there.
Because you see Anakin dodging through the traffic and Ben, as you mentioned, on the droid, weaving through as he's trying to knock him off, and everyone else, Jedi poodle and all that stuff, they're not particularly happy.
Vehicle usages.
It's a personal luxury transport. It's an airspeeder.
Affiliations.
Simon Greyshade, who is the dude that built it and owns it. But of course, because Anakin has acquired it, you could also say that the affiliation was Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Of course, he leaps out of this thing very quickly when he spots Zam in the traffic.
Yeah.
Let's talk a minute about Zam. I mean, as a character, we haven't seen that many. By Attack of the Clones, we haven't really seen that many bounty hunters. We've seen what we saw in Empire. We've seen characters in Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
We've seen all the stuff in the EU in between that sort of expounded on that. But by the time you get to Phantom Menace, you see Aura Singh, but you don't know she's a bounty hunter when you see Aura Singh the first time. She's just a character looking at the pod race.
Yeah. And
And then you move through to Attack of the Clones, and all of a sudden you've got Jango Fett, you've got a young Boba Fett, which we haven't met at this point of the story yet, but, there's a young Boba waiting for us on Camino, which you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And here, Zam Wessel, who's a Clawdite, so obviously can change appearance.
Yeah.
We don't know that until later in this sequence.
Yeah.
But when you first saw Zam Wessel, what was your first impressions of Zam?
Well, we briefly saw Django Fett before we saw Zam, yeah. That was cool seeing Django, but and then they'd sort of like given you the relationship between Django and Zam. She was very easy on the eye as well, in human form.
Yep.
So you've got a female race driver, if you like, potentially somebody that could have been a pod racer as well, but we didn't know that she got alternate form. I think the actual aesthetic, what she was wearing was cool. I think bounty hunters have got a certain look, haven't they? They tend to sort of like stand out as being somebody that's a bit quirky, a bit different. So I think straight away, even if you hadn't have seen the connection to Django, you'd have thought a bit of a bounty hunter.
And also, I think now that we're talking about it like this, when you look at Zam, because they did, Dark Horse did the Zam and Django comic thing, didn't they? So there was, you realise there was a relationship.
Yeah.
And you step forward all those years to Boba and Fennec Shand.
Yeah.
Fennec Shand doesn't look dissimilar in silhouette and look to Zam Wessel.
Yeah, that's a good point. I not thought about that. Yeah, and probably a very similar sort of relationship as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, a great character. Shame really that she dies. But that chase between those two vehicles is brilliant. When Anakin suddenly decides, oh, what, I know a shortcut, and takes them through that underpass and then gets to her again. The first time I saw it, well, she gets struck by a dart.
Camino Cobra dart.
Before she spills too much information. Then her face morphed into her true form up on dying. You think, oh, okay, that's cool. But what I took from that at the time was, I wondered whether Palpatine in some way was able to do the same. So that his true form was probably what he became after the Force Lightning incident in Episode 3.
And the fake face was the
fake face
benevolent,
was the human.
wise Naboo senator.
Yeah, almost it was something that he could no longer control or chose not to bother controlling because, well, that's it now.
Yeah.
It's out in the open kind of thing.
It was a bigger deal to the galaxy that the Jedi had betrayed the Republic than what he looked like.
I would imagine normally if you had that sort of extensive time of having Force like that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Luke. Luke was unaltered by it.
That's true.
So I think what it does is, it rather than scar you, which people assume is what happened to Palpatine, what it does is it just says, well, your true form will be outed by the lightning. So yeah, that was the first thing I thought about was Palpatine when I first saw that back in 2002.
Yeah. I like Zam as a character because, again, it's adding to the bounty hunter lore and giving you a bit more of an insight. And also, there's the duplicity of the appearance. Not that it's duplicitous because Clawdites can change their appearance, and that's the form that Zam decided to take. As soon as she dies, when the carbidite hits her and she dies and she sort of melts back into her true form, they look, shapeshift to Clawdite. They know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So she can't assume that form because she'd never be trusted because she can take other forms. But also, I think, when you look at the plot of the film, and we've had this massive action scene, we had the opening with the explosion on the platform, so there's peril for Padme, and then they chase this assassin and to the point where she's kind of going to tell them a bit more than she should about Django, and Django kills her. Yeah. It's a catch-22 because if he doesn't kill her, the ruse is up. Yeah. But because he does kill her, her death in that moment makes them go, whoa, it's the box opening up, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
there's
now
something going on.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now Obi-Wan goes to the Jedi archives and they get more curious.
Hi, this is Ashley Eckstein, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
The Mando and Grogu trailer, we don't know for sure yet, but that you actually said it, that looks like it's Nar Shaddaa rather than Coruscant. Yeah. Because we did see bits of Nar Shaddaa, quite a bit of Nar Shaddaa in Dark Empire 30 blah, blah, years ago. Yeah. And so that's sort of been built up, so it'd be great to see that in more detail. Yeah. And it's a bit like the world that you saw in Obi-Wan. So you see these locations that are kind of reminiscent of each other. Yeah. But, I'd love to see, Mando and Grogu flying around Coruscant, but maybe for Grogu more than Mando being on Coruscant might be, as the kids say, triggering because of everything that happened. So, but here with Zam being, I was going to say worldly wise, galaxy wise, in terms of bounty hunting, kind of makes sense that being in and around Coruscant wouldn't be a massive shock. There's certain worlds you imagine, like you think, especially in the underworld, like Tatooine, obviously because Jabba and Nar Shaddaa and the Hutt worlds, because of that connection there. And actually, when you work around Galaxy's Edge on the other side of the galaxy, Maz's Castle on the other side, opposite side of the map from Tatooine. So there's probably a lot of places where they would be pretty familiar with.
Yeah. So when we first see her and she's talking to Django, her green speeder is like parked while they're on the platform talking.
Yes.
So what do we know about the green speeder?
Manufacturer.
Desler Gears Outward Mobility Corporation, a company we've not heard of. It's not Corellian.
Not Motability.
Not Corellian.
Model and class.
Corro Series Airspeeder. It's the Corro 2 All-Environment Exodrive Airspeeder, to give it its full title. I don't know how she would have brought that vehicle. You know when you see Phantom Menace and you see Maul gets his speeder out the back of his vehicle?
I would imagine it'd be the same. She's got a bigger ship somewhere and that's,
Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of freighter pilots.
Throw you a real-world equivalent here.
Yeah.
When you see like a 6-berth caravanette driving around towing like a 2-door smart car.
Yes.
It's that kind of thing,
Literally
isn't it?
that.
Yeah.
Technical specifications.
6.6 metres in length, 2.1 metres in width, and 0.9 metres high. Not as tall as an astromech, which we know from quizzes.
Maximum atmospheric speed.
800 kilometres an hour. Now, this is actually a faster vehicle than the one Anakin sort of stole, like all the air quotes.
Armament.
No armament.
Crew complement.
One pilot, one passenger, so it's a two-seater again.
Cargo capacity.
It can carry 80 kilograms of cargo or 0.03 square metres, so nothing. It's a glove box.
Yeah.
Consumables.
It's got 5 years gas for its irradiation system and 2 weeks cabin air supply. So it's a sealed unit. It's a different vehicle. You know, the one that Anakin steals.
It's an MX-5.
It's a hairdresser's car. Whereas this is sealed in. You could actually survive in this for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And affiliation, as it says, Zam Wessel. So not a lot of technical specs for this. But when they get into it, I think you realise that even though Anakin is at the temple and he's on Coruscant, Anakin's using Jedi intuition to find Zam.
Yeah.
Zam is using skill and knowledge, like a taxi driver going around London. She knows the routes of Coruscant. And when that wonderful sequence where they just stop and Obi-Wan's like, oh, well, this is great, isn't it? You know, and Anakin's like, excuse me, and he just jumps out and falls.
Yeah.
It feels like he falls like half a mile.
It does, yeah.
But he knows where she's coming and arrives at that perfect point where he can grab the back of the speeder. When you first saw Attack of the Clones back in 2002, this whole sequence is longer than you think.
It is, yeah.
And there's the work that ILM did in this is insane when you compare even to today's visual effects, nearly a quarter of a century on.
It's a whole set of complexities, isn't it? Because what it is, as well as the sort of the chase itself, once Anakin does that, he's falling through a grid of traffic as well.
Yes.
So you've got the traffic sort of like crisscrossing around him and over him and under him. It doesn't get enough credit, this film.
It really doesn't. You see the devil in him, which we know is in him, but the pod racer, thrill seeker. You know that one scene with that great big vehicle.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan's pull up. And Anakin's like, you know, he's like...
Right, sort of like, almost sort of like...
He's playing Russian roulette or chicken with this huge vehicle.
Yeah, and like you say, he pulls up and it's just about got away with it kind of thing. And it's almost a nervous laugh from Anakin, isn't it?
I think at this point of Anakin's journey, he knows that there's dark thoughts. He's dreaming about his mom, obviously, and just all these other things. And he's had this, like, 10 years, we realised... He hasn't seen Padme since the end of Phantom Menace, or that's the way it reads. He spent his adolescence crushing on Padme, and then he's just met her at this point and been the most awkward teenager ever. You know, she's way more mature, like a daughter will be, way more mature than he is. And he's the poor goof that's, you know... but at least they're not brother and sister.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Just, again, not to dwell too long on this point, but now that you've brought it up, do you think that to some extent... albeit done very subtly, do you think Anakin used the Force to encourage Padme into the relationship? Bearing in mind she was a bit older and she'd always sort of like mocked the fact that he was still a little boy.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that he did in some ways, to a very small extent, use the Force to brainwash her effectively.
Interesting. I've never even considered that. There's the thing you say about how she mocks him a little bit. There is, to me, that felt like a bit of a deflection, like call him Annie. what is there? There's probably a 5-year age gap between the
Yeah.
two. So she puts more weight in duty
Yeah.
than Anakin does.
Yeah.
Because even though at that point he's not blossomed, if you like, as a Jedi yet, and in fact he blossoms more in the dark side in this film with the Tusken Raider
Yes,
scene
yeah.
than he does in the light side, you could argue.
Yeah, yeah.
But she's more of a believer in the duty of her office and the duty of what she's got to do. She's been a queen already, and now she's a prominent senator, and she's still only, what is she, mid-20s?
I would have thought,
It's about the
yeah.
age that Leia was in the
Yeah.
original trilogy.
Yeah.
So there's no, even though the actress was obviously, Natalie Portman was far younger, but she did have that older look about her, more.
I think she was probably meant to be 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. So there's that. I just think she's trying to deflect a little bit, because when she does finally, in the Geonosis arena sequence, sort of say, I'm madly, passionately in love with you kind of thing, Anakin's a little bit like, what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, now you tell me? I can't do a thing about it right now. And of course they do. So I don't know. I'd not thought of that. I think maybe, and we've had this conversation in relation to Qui-Gon, how if Qui-Gon had been around, Anakin obviously would have been a very different Jedi. But you watch The Phantom Menace, and Qui-Gon is influencing stuff all the time in that film.
Yeah.
All the time. You see the little wave of the hand that you're not supposed to see, but he's
Yeah.
doing that all that he's doing it with Boss
Does it on
Nass.
the chance cubes.
He does it with the chance cubes. There's other moments where he's
Yeah.
very, and he's my favourite Jedi, but
Yeah.
very sneakily influencing stuff. But I don't know whether Anakin was doing that with Padme. The read for me of Padme was she was strong-willed, and that was something that Leia, well, Ben says it in Obi-Wan Kenobi series, doesn't he? You know, you get your strength from your mother, you get, you know, these different attributes.
Yeah.
That's why I never liked Leia being a Jedi.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think she needed it. Her strength was her inner strength and her capability to inspire, and that she was the last princess of a doomed world, and all the other things that Leia carried.
She's got like a quiet dignity about her as well, hasn't she?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean,
and steel.
She was an action hero, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But there was a dignity about it because of her royal upbringing.
Yeah, and it was one of those two literal takes for me from the scene in Empire when Luke's calling out to Leia, and Leia senses it. Of course she senses it. He's calling specifically to her.
Yeah.
Of all the characters in all of Star Wars that doesn't need the Force, it's Leia Organa. She's tough enough already.
Yeah.
And even without the Force, and even Luke being a Master Jedi, Leia's still the senior twin. I know Luke's a few minutes older, I think. But, you know, that didn't work for me. Whereas Padme had that in her core.
Well, because of her upbringing as well, Leia was more mature than Luke was at the same age, because Luke had a very sort of sheltered upbringing.
Massively.
And you could argue that somebody from a royal family would also have a sheltered upbringing, but in a different way. She would have had more opportunity.
Way more.
And
it's a life of opulence and privilege.
Yeah.
Luke's often talked down because Leia's the more mature character. And I think even when you look at the personalities, it's Bail Organa made the decision.
Yeah.
No, we'll take the girl. My wife's always wanted a daughter.
Yeah.
And that's why they took Leia.
Do you still think it's an odd choice to send Luke to Tatooine?
You know, if Lucas was sat here with us right now, and we were just having this round robin conversation, and the bodyguards left the room and the snipers put the guns down, I think if you said to George, like you just said, if you said to George, if you could write this whole scenario again and know what you knew from the prequel trilogy, and then do Episode 4, or not in its entirety, because Star Wars would be a completely different film if you knew what happened in the prequel trilogy. But one element was, let's call him Luke Lars, and let's have him on Geonosis, not on Tatooine.
Yeah.
He would probably go, actually, because he tried to play it away like, oh, Skywalker's a common name, like, you know, like Smith or Jones. You know, so, no, it's not. So there's little things like that. I think that's the one glaring one.
Yeah.
And I think you just use the logic of friends close and enemies closer.
Keeping things hidden in plain sight kind of thing. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think around that.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
So, third and final vehicle for today.
Model and class.
It's a swoop, the Zephyr G. This is the vehicle that Anakin hops on to travel across the desert to try and find his mother, which of course he does, to terrible effect as Episode 2 moves on. We've got to assume that this vehicle was part of the homestead because Anakin just hops on it and decides to use it. Cool vehicle. Yeah. You know that Klieg's gone out looking for Shmi.
Yeah.
Tusken Raiders have taken down many of the party. He actually lost half of his leg, so he's not able to ride. So the obvious assumption is that this is the vehicle that Klieg was going out on to try and find his wife.
So this would have been like the equivalent of on farms and small holdings in the real world, of smaller tractors that they would go out on the farmland.
Yeah.
That's basically what this vehicle was. This was Klieg's farm vehicle.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I'd love to look into it, and maybe we will. It's not relevant for starter engines, but just generally. The waggle the air quote small holding of the homestead. How big was the land that they claimed or owned? Because there's moisture evaporators all around. You know, close to the homestead there's stuff there. You see the droids would go out and get to these things. We also know that a droid could quite easily, if he wanted to, 3PO could hop onto this Mobquit speeder and travel out to a moisture evaporator and talk to it or whatever.
That's an interesting story.
But I wonder how big geographically their space was, because what you just said makes all the sense. Luke's got his land speeder. Luke's got his skyhopper.
This would literally be a bit of farm machinery, albeit just to get him from one point of the farm to another. It hasn't got any practical use. There's no way to store moisture and bring it back. It would be to get him to somewhere to do what he's got to do and then maybe monitor his evaporators and then go back home.
And it's probably really cheap to run. I mean, a Skyhopper would be great.
2-stroke.
Closed canopy. Literally, It's like a glider compared to a plane. It's probably cheaper to run, less visible to people. Why would you want to be up in the air? Because a Tusken Raider might take a shot at you. So stay low to the ground. And he would know his own land in a way that, I mean, Anakin would know Tatooine pretty damn well. You see in that sequence when he's racing towards his mom that it feels like he's riding down part of the Boonta Eve pod race track at one point.
Technical specifications.
It's 3.68 metres in length, 0.66 metres in width, so it's not very wide at all, and 0.72 metres in height. So there's not a lot to it. It's a fairly lengthy vehicle, but it's not enormous.
Engine specs.
Air scoop powered turbine, a power plant, a power generator, and secondary power cells as well.
Armament.
It has no armament, but then again, it's got a Jedi on the back, so it doesn't need any. One pilot, although I'm pretty sure you could scooch somebody on the back if you needed to. It's got an onboard homing beacon. It's got a repulsor lift array.
Affiliations.
The Skywalker family, but specifically the Lars family to Klieg. So not an awful lot to the vehicle technically.
No.
But thematically, what that vehicle enables Anakin to do, not only to find his mother, but this scene is the real tip of the scales to the dark side, isn't it?
It is. Well, I liked how they played it out as well, because obviously you see Anakin on it, you see a silhouetted version of him outside the Sandcrawler, talking with Jawas, finding direction.
Love it.
I absolutely love the fact that they've managed to shoehorn the Sandcrawler into so many different films now, beyond the original Star Wars and TV series. Probably my favourite Mandalorian episode, or certainly in my top 3, is the one with the almost like Jawas of Doom. It's almost like that Marvel comic strip, isn't it? And that, again, in Marvel Comics, the use of that Sandcrawler in Jawas of Doom was brilliant. One of my favourite storylines. It was so cool. But so you see the build-up to arriving at the Tusken village. I'd never really thought about the vehicle as anything other than a speeder bike until today, when you realise, from a practicality point of view, the fact that it belonged to the Lars family, it was like a utility vehicle for the farmland.
When Anakin comes back, he's got Padme with him, and we know within the Star Wars world, from Andor, for example, and you know very well about this, Moffy and Poffy, because you were one of them, that there's we were watching television this morning before we started recording and watching the news with all the stuff that's going on. And so in the Star Wars galaxy, even though, it's like when you watch a soap, and in real life, in a real house, the telly's on or the radio's on, but they can't do that in scripted television, because they have to pay a license for the music or whatever it might be. And everyone watches something on the telly and then turns it off. It's just contrived. That's not how real life is. But in the Star Wars galaxy, you imagine if Beru is in the kitchen mushing up the leeks like she is in A New Hope, in real life, she'd have a bit of music on in the background, or she'd be listening to whatever the morning show was. Or
she'd have Heart FM on, wouldn't she?
That's it. ISB agent Heart FM. So there's all these moments that they can't really put in, but they kind of would. If Luke's in his Skyhopper, he'd be listening to a bit of music, wouldn't he? He would. And so Anakin arriving at the homestead, when he turns up with Padme, we know Padme is a really important character from the Battle of Naboo and all the stuff that's happened in the Senate, and so she's a notable person. It's like a major politician turning up at this out of the back of nowhere homestead. But I wonder whether or not Owen and Beru, obviously they know who Anakin is, and Klieg would know what Shmi had told him. And you imagine that Shmi would be proud as punch of her son, who has this amazing destiny after being a slave and winning the pod race and being mature enough to be able to let go of his mother and her to be brave enough to let him do it. And that's a huge moment in his life. But you imagine after he's gone and he never comes back, this is him coming back, that she would have been so proud, my son's a Jedi. And because at this point in the galaxy, Jedi is not a dirty name. The Order 66 and the real con hasn't happened yet. That's still 3 years away.
I think probably the tipping point as well, if he'd have gone there a day sooner, then his mom would still be alive.
Yeah.
He could have arrived there prior to her being taken by the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
So I think for him, that always played a big part in his downfall, because it was like that what if moment for him. Like,
I think when you watch the scene, it feels the thematic thing. Like, you know, when Padme has the kids and she dies of a broken heart. Now, people actually do die of a broken heart.
Yeah.
And for years, people in fandom would talk about Padme being fridged and blah, blah, blah. When really, in the most practical sense, Lucas couldn't have Padme around. That was the tragic loss that really tilts the scales for him becoming Vader. That's Palpatine's laugh is like, gotcha. You know, that horrible moment where Anakin realises, I've got nowhere to go. Even if I could escape this, I've got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So that's the terror of that moment. When Shmi dies, it's almost like she's waiting to see Anakin. It's like, my son, my boy, and all that stuff, my beautiful boy. And then she dies. It's like she was waiting to see him so she could die. She could allow herself to let go. Obviously, what she'd been through was awful.
In Return of the Jedi, when Luke asks her what he remembers about it, what she remembers about her mother, and she says,
very beautiful.
Very, very beautiful, very sad.
Yeah.
We then learn that Padme actually dies when Leia is moments old.
Yeah.
Moments old.
Yeah.
No, not even minutes. So how could she have known that? But by making her Force sensitive, then so she doesn't actually realise that she never witnessed that, but through the Force, she has witnessed it.
Yeah.
So she can't explain it.
Yeah.
But she has then got a memory of her mother that other non-Force sensitives wouldn't have had.
That's a great point, I think. And also, I think when they sat down to sort of, more specifically, I would say for Last Jedi, that they're really going to double down on Leia having Force powers.
Yeah.
Felt like for a lot of people on that ship watching that happen, like, some of them would be, how the hell is she doing this? But others would be, oh yeah, she trains a Jedi with Luke, but she put a saber down.
Yeah.
You know, so and Rise of Skywalker shows you that moment where she's getting pretty good. Obviously, Luke's not going in full speed. The thought that Leia remembers that moment does give you an excuse or a reason.
It retcons that scene from Jedi and how she could have some memory of her mother that
to
she
make it make
really
sense.
didn't know.
So when Padme turns up at the homestead, it's very sketched out, very lightly, but I like the fact that she feels comfortable there. Anakin, obviously, as we said about Grogu going back to Coruscant, it's like it could be triggering. Anakin being back on Tatooine is clearly triggering. He's seen Watto. You know, Padme seems kind of a bit cold about Watto because she knows what he is. He's down on his luck. I think it's a beautifully done sequence. Andy Serkis smashed it. And there's a fear as well.
Yeah.
Like, Watto's scared of Anakin now because Anakin's not there to chat and catch up. He's there for information.
There's something quite subtle as well about that Watto scene, which is that in the original sketches of Watto, he had that hat. And so they obviously didn't use that in episode 1, but then they decided to bring it into 2, which I thought was a real nice nod to the original concept of the character. Yeah.
Very much, very much. So he's there on business, this speeder. Thank goodness it was there, but also because Anakin had never been to the homestead before, he'd never lived in the homestead. He's still a teenager, I think, at this point. He's coming in as an authority character. I'm going to find my mother. I'm going to go out and find it. And Klieg's like, it's not going to happen.
I would imagine Anakin was probably there a couple of days.
Yeah, that's my read of it, yeah.
So Anakin has stayed over in the homestead at Tatooine. All those years later, for Luke to be brought up there, there's that other connection between them. Wouldn't it be amazing to stay over?
I think it would be phenomenal to stay over. For any Star Wars fan to be able to stay at the homestead, visit Tunisia, I think we should do it. I think between the 7th and 14th of November later this year, we should, along with a bunch of other Fantha trackers and other folks.
I tell you what, we'll book it. Oh no, hang on.
We've already done that.
It.
Yeah. So we can tell you now, loyal listeners to Start Your Engines and Fantha Tracks Radio, that there will be episodes of Fantha Tracks Radio coming literally from the homestead. Yeah. We're going to record some Start Your Engines there.
Yeah.
We're going to record some episodes of Making Tracks. We're going to record some collecting tracks.
Yeah.
There's probably even going to be an episode of Good Morning Tatooine.
And I think we'll be able to have some very special guests on there,
I think
including
we
yourself. I mean, we won't reveal who's going on the trip just yet,
No.
but there are some people that a lot of people have heard of from fandom. There'll be some great little chats and great radio episodes.
There will be. I even know what vehicle we're going to talk about. I've even plotted and planned. I even know what we're going to talk about. It's very, very relevant to Tatooine.
Excellent.
So for this episode, as we wrap it up, the Swoops and Speeders of episode 2, it's a film that's got actually more cool ships in it than you think.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the additions to the Queen's Fleet at the very beginning. You've got, obviously, Slave One. You know, you see that for the first time.
You mean Jango Fett's spaceship?
That's the one. Sorry, copyright lawyers. Didn't mean to say that. And so, you know, there's some great vehicles in there. But these are, especially Anakin's swoop. Tied to the plot.
Yeah.
That they're the vessel that gets him from point A to point B for a moment that sees him do things that no Jedi should do and sees Padme. Again, this is another element of Padme's bad boy attraction.
Yeah.
You know, she should have run a mile from Anakin.
Bad boy attraction.
But it is that kind of, I love him and I'm going to fix him.
Yeah.
Some people have.
But isn't that what's happened in the real world, isn't it?
Every day.
The way that relationships happen is one thinks that they can fix the other one and the other one thinks that, they'll stay the same. That's where it's always doomed. Doomed.
Jawas have doomed. Thank you so much for this episode.
Cheers.
We've talked way more than I thought we would, and all of it has been wonderfully interesting.
Excellent.
I don't think we've picked our next vehicle yet.
We haven't, no.
Got any thoughts? I mean, don't say, because it's
No.
nice to surprise the listener.
When we first started toying with the idea of doing this, I was surprised when you told me yesterday that you found the list.
Oh, I've still got
So
the list.
you got the list, so
Yeah.
we'll go back to the list. There was hundreds of vehicles.
There was lots,
Yeah.
and there's more been added since then.
Exactly. So I'm sure it'll be very interesting.
Thanks for listening to Start Your Engines. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com and be sure to comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fanthatracks. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fanthatracks intro and our Start Your Engines opening music, Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers, and of course the data miners at Wikipedia. Remember to tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock UK time, 4 PM Eastern and 1 PM Pacific on Facebook, YouTube and Twitch. And check out our Fanthatracks Radio Friday Night Rotation. It's every Friday night at 7 o'clock UK time for new episodes of The Phantom from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks, and every Tuesday at 7 o'clock UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks.
Coming up next on Fanthatracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.
Where's the off button?